What's up, guys? This is Movie Dissect, my name is Bolot, and let's start this episode. The film that we're going to analyze today is Gravity, directed by Alfonso Cuarón in 2013. Look, the thing is that I was just sipping my morning coffee and nothing was hinting to big news or huge day. And that till the moment until I stumbled upon this article where Chris Hadfield, the NASA astronaut, reviewed Gravity. And he crashes Gravity, he absolutely destroys it. And the reason for destroying it is that he thinks the movie is too far from reality. Yes, he admits that the movie has great visual effects and whatsoever, but it's just too far from reality. And especially the scene where the satellite crashes into the International Space Station doesn't make any sense to him. It even angers him how the movie violates the laws of physics in a very extreme way. And look, he's not the first one to criticize Gravity. For example, a couple of years ago there were these NASA scientists as well that awarded Gravity for being one of the most inaccurate science fiction movies of the recent years. And they even went as far to say that everything that could go wrong in Gravity went terribly wrong. Now, I was left with a question, with a trouble, with a problem. And my problem was, look, scientists are smart, we all know that, and we should believe them. But the problem is, Cuarón is also not an idiot. He's a genius, all of his films suggest that, and he didn't want to make a bad movie either, I'm quite sure of that. So it got me thinking, look, are they exaggerating, or are they right? And what did Cuarón have in mind while making this movie? And yeah, let's just dive right into it. But first, guys, if you're enjoying this content and want to know the explanation for mysterious movies like this one, or want an occasional review of a new movie, subscribe. It's really easy to do and it will give me tons of motivation to keep going. And if you really like the video, hit that like button and leave me a comment. Thank you. First and foremost, I would like to establish that we are going to look at this film from the perspective of a dream. But even though it's a dream, the director aims to make it as realistic as possible. And you can see that from literally all the techniques he uses, the digital photography, the special effects, everything makes the audience participate in a very intense way. And Cuarón, the genius that he is, makes it so realistic and so believable that even the NASA astronaut Chris Hadfield believed that Cuarón was trying to represent reality, which then helps us to understand where the criticism comes from, because of course if you think that a person is trying to represent reality while he's filming a dream, you can say it's nonsense. But again, the main idea in this episode is that Cuarón has never had the urge to make something really realistic or scientifically believable. In this film it's all the opposite actually. It's just so simple, plain and simple, it's a dream. And in a dream, everything is possible. Also, by the way, let's not underestimate the name of the film, which is Gravity. And I think all of you will agree with me, dreams have a lot to do with the loss of gravity. Another point to prove that this is a dream, I would like to point out that feeling when you have recently seen something or experienced something and then you dream about it. Well, you can say that in this movie, Stone, our main character, is kind of doing the same. The reason for us to believe that is because there are many references and symbols to other science fiction movies. A couple of examples is that the actor Ed Harris provides the voice of ground control, which he did in Apollo 13. The trauma of Sandra Bullock looks the same as the trauma of the astronaut in Solaris by Tarkovsky. The fire extinguisher seems to be plucked from WALL-E, our beloved animation movie. And at some point Sandra Bullock is humming this song, which is called Daisy Bell. And this is a reference to the ever slower singing computer from 2001 Space Odyssey. After seeing that, we can say she's a person who has seen all of those movies and now is recreating part of them in her dream. And we can go on and on about those symbols and references, but the point is there's clearly no denying that this is a dream. Now that we've finally established that it's a dream, let's have a look at the story. The story is quite simple. The crew of a space shuttle is troubled by some junk during repairment works, and then the surviving astronaut Sandra Bullock does her best to come back to Earth. And that's all. But now see, how is the dream incorporated into the story? And to understand that, let's first see how dreams are built. Look, in a dream, whatever is happening represents you and your thoughts. A quick example, even if you dream of another person, it will represent you because it will be filled with your thoughts and your point of views and your experiences. I had this dream recently where I dreamt of a friend, and in my dream he could drive a car while in reality he can't. And that's only because I can. So, take it or leave it, there are no other characters besides Stone. You can say that George Clooney is there and then the Indian astronaut is there, but they are just a representation of layers of Stone's mind. But hang on with me and I'll explain. To understand it better, here's a quick psychology class for you. We all know Freud, right? The classy cigar-smoking neurologist with some valuable theories. Well, so according to him, there are three distinct interacting parts in the human mind: the id, the ego, and the superego. The id represents our desires and our instinct, while the superego plays a critical and moralizing role, like the father figure who would always say what we should or shouldn't do. And the ego is the organized, realistic part that meditates between the id and the superego. It's a balancing power that's in between them. Okay, and now we're back to proving that the characters are actually just representing Stone's mind. Look, take Kowalski as a superego, the Indian astronaut as the id, and Stone herself is the ego. There is, however, one problem, we believe. If you say there are three parts, then one of them is killed quite early in the movie, which is the Indian Macarena dancing astronaut. And does that make sense? How does it work from now on? Well, yeah, it does. Because look, from the very beginning of the film, Stone's lust for life is already less pronounced. And just after a few minutes in the film, it's completely dead. Dead, stone dead, after the corner, ceases to exist.
It has ceased to be. It's expired and gone to see its maker.
You get it. And after that moment, Stone has no lust for life at all, and therefore has no libido. And that's the reason also why she listens to Kowalski and barely reacts to anything what he's saying. It's because the id is dead, so there is no opposing power to the superego. By the way, you know that on this channel we like to give you fun facts which are not so fun but extremely interesting to know? Well, there's one for today. If you ever wondered why she's called Rhinestone, it's a reference to Rhinestone Cowboy, which is a song by Glenn Campbell on survival when everything goes wrong. And boy, does everything go terribly, terribly wrong there. Like we said earlier, there are many references and symbols in this movie, but not only to science fiction films. There are also just references to things in general. And unlike me, Stone is having a really well-structured dream in which those symbols and references keep coming back. And from them we can conclude that Stone in real life is someone who is depressed, saddened, or crushed by some happenings or whatever. The point is that she's going through a healing process and she has to recover, and that she's trying to find her way back. And in general, she's having a spiritual journey. Look for yourself. Stone begins the film as a depressed woman who is also destructive because she continues to work when there is extreme danger. The moment Kowalski wants to tell his Mardi Gras story, it is interrupted by destructive missiles, as if the brain of Stone does not want to hear that story. So when she sees the result of the destructiveness, we also see Marvin the Martian floating. And this is like the most literal reference to the destructive nature of Stone in the beginning. Because we all know Marvin the Martian has no other characteristics than being destructive. At one point he even wants to destroy Earth just because the planet obstructs his view of Venus. But then, as we said, the spiritual journey has to begin somewhere, doesn't it? And that happens only when superego Kowalski finally disconnects himself from the traumatized ego of Stone. But it's a difficult process, it's a healing process. Those are never easy. Remember the striking shot in the Soyuz of Saint Christopher? By the way, if you didn't know, he was the holy man who wanted to work for the highest in the universe. But it didn't really matter for him whether it was the devil or God. One day he carried a child over the water and he almost drowned because the child kept getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And later we get to know that the child was Jesus Christ himself. So without even realizing it, you can say that Saint Christopher had taken the whole world and the Christ upon his shoulders. Stone is like Saint Christopher, someone who without realizing it is carrying the world on her shoulders and initially believes in nothing. She's not a spiritual person, at least so she says to the Eskimo, but she ultimately discovers, like Saint Christopher, that a Christ or an angel is sitting on her shoulder, kind of represented by Matt Kowalski, the person who is guiding her to her revival. Purely visual, Stone returns to the Womp, but her rebirth doesn't happen immediately. She first has to get rid of her depressed thoughts and death wishes and so on and so on. So our superego Kowalski has returned to the dream within her dream, and now she can go through the last phase of her healing process. And the way Cuarón films this scene suggests that the superego gets absorbed by the ego. From that moment on, Stone starts talking like Kowalski. And this is not a metaphor. She literally quotes him 4 times. So after the quick visit of Kowalski, Stone seems to be reincarnated, sort of, in a new and better version of herself. Just like Siddhartha evolved into the Buddha. And we don't make this comparison out of nothing, because again, another literal reference to Buddha was in the Shenzhou, where you see a shot of him, and as we all know, he was a spiritual leader who attained enlightenment on his own. Something that Stone is kind of trying to do. But listen, this is Movie Dissect, we don't disappoint you, and we always go deeper on this channel. We believe that between Stone and Siddhartha there are even more similarities. She's locked up in a dream, like he was locked up in the castle of his father. Both wanted to see the outside world, but are unable to do so. And both reach enlightenment at the end after a long period of self-torture. Once attained enlightenment, Stone can come out of the water, crawl ashore, and stand upright, and as if she's doing the evolution of mankind all over again in just a few seconds. And you know, just trust us. These hints in the film are absolutely not arbitrary. So listen, now that we broke down the movie and analyzed the dream, there's only one question left. What the hell is happening to the woman in real life? Well, here's our version of it. But please note that even the best interpretation is still a subjective one. And by the way, let us know in the comments what you think of our version. In our version, Ryan Stone is a doctor who works for NASA, and her love for space was probably encouraged by her parents, and that explains why she watched so many science fiction movies. The once cheerful Ryan had a relationship with another younger woman, but the relationship has disintegrated. She became depressed, took her car, started driving circles, but at some point she had enough of it and she decides to crash. She crashes and falls into the coma.
During her coma, she dreams that she's an astronaut at NASA. She's operated on the heart, and the surgeon, whose name is Ground Control, hopes she will survive. Ryan sinks deeper and deeper into limbo until there's a spiritual click in her brain.
That click in her brain actually makes her find the lust for life again, and from that moment on, she quickly returns to herself again in real life, and in the movie, she quickly gets back to Earth. But is she then really awake, or does she die? Or is there gonna be someone waiting for her? We don't know. And it's not important. Gravity isn't a film that easily reveals its secrets. And we try to reveal as many of them, but let's keep some of them open. Remember how in the beginning of the movie we said that scientists are smart, but so is Cuarón? Well, our theory just proves it again. From the scientific point of view, yes, gravity is filled with nonsense, but Cuarón knows that. He knows that. There are just too many moments that are so hard to believe, and Stone survives too many drawbacks that if you think about it for a second, you'll say, nah, not believable. The excuse of some people is just to say, oh, it's just another Hollywood movie or something. But see, Cuarón doesn't make another Hollywood movies. He's a highly intelligent man, and he wouldn't deliberately make a stupid movie. The thing is, he places so many references and symbols and secrets into the movie, and scientists are not very interested in revealing them. They're just not. He just brilliantly made use of a technique called suspension of disbelief, where he uses hyper-realistic images and shots that you're led to believe that the dream is a reality. And he hopes that you will experience this movie as a reality. So, our final verdict to all of you scientists out there, yes, gravity is not realistic, but it was never meant to be. It's not happening in space, it's happening in someone's brain. And guys, thank you for watching. This was Movie Dissect for today. If you have any more questions, let us know, and see you in the next one.